Hello, one and all, and welcome to Film Fragments, a podcast where we take fragments of an actor, director, or genre and tell you our favorites from their catalog. My name is Bryan. I'm your host. My hair is an absolute mess, but I don't give a shit because this is my show. My hair can look as perfect and as messy as it wants to be. But enough about me. It's time to introduce our guests who joining us today is going to be talking about our favorite films directed by Steven Soderbergh, Oscar-winning filmmaker, writer, director, cinematographer, editor. I mean, he does the whole nine. It's incredible, very eclectic filmography, and I'm very excited to welcome our guest. Bailey Herdé is here to talk to me about our favorite Steven Soderbergh films. Bailey, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Bryan. Thank you for asking.
I'm so excited to have you on. And truly, I'm very excited to have you on. We've been talking for a little while, and now we finally get to meet and we get to gush about Double S, Steven Soderbergh. Just so excited to talk about this man. And before we get into talking about this man, I like to throw a curveball question at the start of these episodes. So if you could get, wow, I see. I'm just so excited to ask you, and I'm my words are just all over the place. So if you could take one character from a Steven Soderbergh film, guy or girl, out to dinner, whether it's with family, friends, or just yourself, which character would it be?
I think I have to go for the easy answer here and say Danny Ocean.
Easy answer. that's a great choice. I mean, why wouldn't anyone want to take George Clooney out to dinner? I mean, really, like,
Exactly.
you could have said his character from Out of Sight, and I would have been like, hey, that's fine too. You could take him out too.
Either
So
one, I feel like either one would have they just have great stories. They'd be good to look at, it'd just be a great time.
you wouldn't even care about the meal that's in front of, like, down here. You would just care about the man that's in front of you.
Exactly.
You'd be like, fuck my meal. I'm looking at this. This is my meal tonight.
Exactly.
Not the food. So for me, this is really tough. Honestly, to kind of go off very hot looking men, very suave dudes. I am gonna go. This is so cliche. I'm gonna go with Rusty Ryan, Brad Pitt's character from the Ocean's trilogy, because
Yes.
you know what? I mean, talk about prime hotness for Brad Pitt. I mean, all three of those
Absolutely.
lead men are gorgeous in all three of those films. I mean, and all three of them haven't really aged at all, which is insane. Yeah, that's who I would go with. In terms of girl characters, that's really tough because, I kind of wanted to pick Andy McDowell's character from Sex, Lies, and Videotape,
Hmm.
but I don't know, between her and then Rusty, it's like, which one do I go with? I mean, they're both like incredibly gorgeous and everything, but it's like I have no idea who to pick. But Rusty just seems like a very laid back dude, so it would be nice to have a meal with him, just chat it up about whatever with him. So that's
Hmm.
who I would pick. So Bailey, talk a little bit about yourself. Talk a little bit about what got you into film. Talk a little bit about some of your favorites of all time, and talk about some of the stuff you do online regarding film.
So I'm from Virginia. That's where I currently am right now. I went to college at Sarah Lawrence College. I got into film. I think I got into film really by way of my mom's like entertainment and People magazines as a kid. She's always been like super into celebrities. So then, I just kind of picked that up and I was, looking to see all their fashion and what they were doing and when movies were coming out and all that stuff. And then, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump over to watching movies and TV and stuff. And I don't know, I've always loved it. So, it's always been, I always have time for a movie, always have time for TV. And then I guess the stuff I do online is mostly just post really dumb shit about whatever movies I'm watching or, whatever TV shows I'm watching. Always have to have an opinion on all of that stuff, which I always enjoy. Talking with people like you online about all that stuff. But yeah.
I love that. I love all those answers. I love that so much. I love a lot of the stuff you tweet. It's ridiculous, but I appreciate it. It's very enjoyable film Twitter humor that, sometimes film Twitter could be so like cringy and so mean, but your
Hmm.
your tweets are really hysterical. So
Thank you.
I very much appreciate your content and what you bring to film Twitter. And speaking of film Twitter, we're going to be talking about someone that a lot of people look up to, someone that a lot of people love, Mr. Steven Soderbergh. So Steven Soderbergh, what a filmography, truly. I mean, what a catalog of really excellent stuff. He has a very wide variety of different genres that he's tackled. And the thing that I love about Soderbergh is that he could do something so small, like something really small, like a Sexwise and Videotape, or he could do something very big and grand, like an Ocean's trilogy or other kinds of films. Like he's tackled pretty much every genre like possible. The guy's been making films for over 30 years. And the thing that I love about him is that not only does he direct and write, I mean, he shoots a lot of the films that he's directed, and he's also edited a lot of the films that he's done. He shoots under these different names, Peter Andrews, then Marianne Bernard, and it's incredible how much work he puts into all of his films. It's really impressive. And again, the amount of genres that he's tackled throughout the years is really impressive. There are plenty of filmmakers that like to dip their toes into different genres, but I don't think to the extent of Soderbergh, because he's done, like I said, pretty much everything at this point, and he keeps pumping out great film one after the other. Sure, he's had some duds the last few years, but I mean, what filmmaker hasn't had a dud? He's just one of those guys that whenever he slaps his name on a project, I do get very interested in seeing what he does, because he brings together great actors and then he tackles really interesting premises. And I love that a lot of his films are set in different locations. He could make a film set in America. He could make a film set in overseas. Like he could even make a film set in space. I mean, that's the thing that's so impressive with Soderbergh, is that he is very versatile with his craft. He can make something that is very appealing towards anyone, any kind of audience member. And then he can make something that's very catered towards us film geeks, us cinephiles. And some people may call it his films pretentious. Some of them, sure, may hinter on that. But he's one of those guys, like I said, that he has tackled everything, a very eclectic filmography. And I really do love a lot of the guy's work. How do you feel about Soderbergh? Why do you think a lot of people love Soderbergh's work so much, even though he's had some duds these last few years? Like, what makes you a fan of Soderbergh, but also why do you think he appeals towards so many people across the world, film geek or not? What about his films stands out to you most?
To me, I think that, he does have those kind of, we'll say like pretentious tendencies or whatever, but I would say overall, like his films are very equalizing. Like he has those, he has a very distinct style. He has a very, like, especially visually, the editing, it's very clearly like, it's very precise, but it's not, it's not unapproachable for anybody. Like, anybody can go and see Ocean's 11, and enjoy it, but you still see those kind of flares of, the editing, the styling, like all that stuff. He makes blockbusters, but arty blockbusters, and then he has his kind of more low key indie things, whatever. But I think those are still, engineered for kind of like a mass appeal, like, even like Solaris, something like that. It's sci-fi, but it's like a more elevated concept, but it's more grounded in the sense of like, it's not explosions and lasers and all that stuff, but it's still very easy to access. Like, it's a love story, like that type of stuff. I love that all of his stuff, regardless of the subject matter, the narrative, whatever, it's grounded, it's very easy to access, especially in terms of emotion and character.
Absolutely, 100%. So I'm very curious to hear your list. I've been looking forward to this for a couple of weeks now, and I just cannot wait to see what you put on your list. I can't wait to see if it surprises me or if I'm not surprised. I'm curious to see if we have any similarities. I'm sure we have at least one similarity, but I cannot wait to talk to you about Soderbergh. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into our top 5 films directed by Steven Soderbergh. So, Bailey, I have to ask you a very important question. What is your number 5 favorite Steven Soderbergh film of all time?
Okay, I just want to preface this by saying that this was like picking favorite children. This was very hard for me.
Oh, I saw the tweet. You're like, oh, I can't do it. I can't rate these films.
Exactly. It's so hard. Like, there are definitely ones that stand out above the rest, but he has so many that are still like, maybe they're not top 5, but they're still like right up there, But I think my number 5 is Solaris, which I watched for the first time recently. I unfortunately didn't do my homework and watch the original one first, just because that one was like 3 hours and this one is a tight like 90 minutes, and I was like, that's much more appealing. But having said that, just as a movie by itself, without talking about the original, I really enjoyed it because, like I was saying earlier, I think this is his like one foray into sci-fi. This is his one kind of like out there concept. There's this planet entity, whatever, that's recreating people who are dead, who are just not there, who people are thinking about. It's not super clear like what's going on exactly, but what is clear is that this is about a man whose wife died, who he misses so much, and then all of a sudden she appears to him again, and then it's kind of like about their relationship and his relationship to his memory of her and her relationship to her own memories and stuff like that. It's very, in the end, it's just about people and how we interact with each other and stuff. And I love that about it. And, George Clooney, of course, is amazing in it. Love seeing Viola Davis in Steven Soderbergh movies. I want her to do a movie where she's the main character with him, please. Steven, if you hear this.
Oh, it will happen at some point. It's going to happen at some point.
It has to, right? Yeah, I think everybody's super great in this. And it's a nice, like, contemplative sci-fi movie, but it's also, like, just human relationships and stuff like that, which I'm a sucker for.
Yeah, I unfortunately have not seen this one. This is one of the few blind spots on the list. I've never seen the original, and I've always wanted to watch it. And then I was going to watch this one, but then I'm like, see, I really don't want to be that guy, because there are people online that fucking adore the original. I mean, it's Tarkovsky, and you know how the cinephiles are towards him. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there are people that are like, this remake is a piece of shit. It's sacrilege. Why would you remake Solaris? Oh, my God. And like, I can understand that. I can understand people being a little antsy with the fact that there's a remake to some of it's so beloved. But I mean, this film did pretty well. It got really good reviews critically. And I think it's so interesting that Soderbergh directed this. You know, this is so far, like you said, probably his only foray into science fiction. And I said this very recently that I love sci-fi films like this, where it's not all about like the explosions and the lasers and all the fights and everything. I like the more self-contained sci-fi stories, which is why I loved Ex Machina so much. And I loved a film recently like Ad Astra so much, because it was very contained. Yeah, it was pretty to look at. It was very stylized and everything, but it was more focused on the story and the characters rather than the scope, because a lot of the sci-fi movies that we get nowadays are more about the scope and making everything feel so grand, but they don't really put a lot of effort into the characters. And, you know, when you have someone like Soderbergh, you know that he's not going to do that. You know that he's going to put as much care into his characters as humanly possible. And that's what he did with this. I think it's also cool that James Cameron produced this. I think it's very cool that it was a nice pairing between them two. And yeah, I mean, George Clooney, I've seen the images. The poster for this movie is one of the sexiest looking posters I have ever seen in my life, where it's him and Natasha McElhone, you know, from the Truman Show. You know, they're like close to me kissing, and I'm like, wow, that is steamy as fuck. That is so hot. Holy shit. But no, I definitely want to give this a watch. I want to give the original a watch as well. And I think a lot of people consider this probably one of the better remakes to have come out because obviously I'm sure a lot of people can acknowledge this is probably not as good as the original. But I mean, how often do you get a remake better than the original? It's very rare that that happens. But it seems like a lot of people do appreciate the fact that this was a good remake. Like, obviously, it stands out in its own. And I'm sure Soderbergh was nervous tackling this film, because you're remaking something so classic like Solaris, and now it's like, oh my god, one of this doesn't live up to anything. Like, one of this is bad, and clearly a lot of people seem to like it. Obviously, your praises toward it is very it's very encouraging for me now. It helps because whenever I go down the road of watching this movie, now I know that I'm like, okay, if Bailey says that this is good, then it must be good. If she's wrong, then we'll figure that out later.
Well, the funny thing is too that apparently the author of the book that both movies are based on doesn't like either adaptation. So,
well, that's reassuring.
Yeah, so they have that in common, you know.
that is very reassuring, to say the least. So for me, my number 5, I'm gonna go with the film that was labeled as his big comeback after his retirement, and that's Logan Lucky from 2017. So I think when it was announced that he was coming back out of his retirement to make another feature, everyone was so excited. They're like, oh my God, he's coming back. This is so exciting. This is great. And what better way to come back than do another heist comedy? And this may not be the only heist movie on my list. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But to talk about this movie, fantastic ensemble. Channing Tatum, Adam Driver, Daniel Craig, Seth MacFarlane, Riley Keough, Katie Holmes, Hilary Swank, Catherine Waterston, Sebastian Stan, and this cast, and I just love that he's in this movie. Pre The Boys, Jack Quaid. I love that he's in this so much. It's just so great. I know everything there is to know about the computers, okay? All the Twitters, all of that stuff. No, I love this film so much. It was so entertaining. It was so exciting. The entire cast did such a great job. I never thought that I would love the pairing of Channing Tatum and Adam Driver. I never thought that I would need that in my life, but they work off each other really beautifully, and you bought their brotherhood. I just love their dynamic together. They're so different from one another that it somehow works really, really well. And I think the thing to keep in mind with Soderbergh is that he's really good with comedy. And, a lot of the comedy could come off very dry to some people. But what I think Soderbergh does really well, especially with his comedies, is that, yeah, he could do comedies that come off very dry, but he does comedies also where it's very easy to laugh. And this movie is fucking hysterical from start to finish. And I love the racing sequences. I think the heist element is so fun. It's so entertaining. But the best thing about this movie, hands down, is the jaw-droppingly amazing supporting performance from Mr. Daniel Craig as Joe Bane. Oh my 100%. God. Let me tell you, when that first trailer came out and you heard his accent, I was like, oh my God, what the hell happened to James Bond? What is going on with this? But I was so excited to see him in this. He stole the entire show. It's one of my favorite supporting comedic performances of the past few years, especially in a studio comedy like this. I just love the performance. Every single delivery from him is pretty much pitch perfect. Literally the sequence where they're underground and he's asking about 20 or 30. And he's like, is it 20 or is it 30? We are dealing with science here. And then he's in the back of the car, and then Riley Keough's driving. He's like, I'm about to get naked. So no peeking. I said no peeking.
Exactly. And it's the superior, unhinged Daniel Craig Southern accent, if you ask me.
Now, the real question is, which Southern accent was better? This one or his accent in Knives Out? 'Cause that's tough.
I think despite living in the South, I wouldn't call myself a Southern accent aficionado, but I will say I was more entertained by the one in Logan Lucky. I think he just went balls to the wall.
He went in, and then not to mention the bleach blonde hair that he had. I mean, it was just so out of left field for him, because I mean, if you've only looked at him as James Bond and you see him in this, it's like a complete 180. It's ridiculous. And then I guarantee you that Rian Johnson saw this movie and was like, okay, gotta cast Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc. And I mean, it's history from there. But no, I love this movie so much. It was a great comeback for Soderbergh. I think if Soderbergh, being retired from filmmaking and then to come back with a film like this was really a great thing. So I love the film. There are people that online that would like another movie set in this universe with these characters. Would I say no to that? No. Do I need a sequel? No, not necessarily. I'm good with this being a one and done thing, but I would absolutely love to see another movie where Daniel Craig plays a great supporting comic character. And yeah, I love this movie. So are you going to pass, or is this not on your list?
This one is not on my list, but I want to say that there was great deliberation because I also love this movie. I love the part where the prisoners are having their strike, and they're talking about they want the Game of Thrones books, and then they're going back and forth about how come this guy knows about what happened, like we need more books, and he's like, no, he hasn't written more books, it's the show. Like he said that his promotion schedule is too grueling, he can't write the books right now. Which is like, it's so funny, like, especially watching it now because, like, we're past the end of Game of Thrones. We've got this new prequel now, whatever. Like, I think everyone's pretty much accepted that George R.R. Martin is probably never going to finish those books. It's such a, like, what year did that movie come out?
2017.
2017. It's such a 2017 joke, but it's still like...
It is a 2017.
It really is, but it just transports you right back, like, to that era of, like, what's gonna happen in Game of Thrones. And it's so funny too to think of, like, of course these guys will want to be up to date on the, sexy dragon show.
Can we get more of Adam Driver playing armless men, please?
Yeah, right.
Oh God, I mean, seriously, the pairing of him and Shannon is like so perfect. Like they're so perfect together, and
absolutely.
I mean, Adam Driver's maybe my favorite actor working today, like of his generation, maybe my favorite. Mm-hmm. So like him working with Soderbergh is just so incredible, and just like, I mean, it's like the roles were tailor made for every single actor involved. Like every single actor nailed their role, and it was perfect. I'm a little iffy with Seth MacFarlane's British accent, but I'm able to push that aside because his time on screen was pretty entertaining. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, so, I feel like it's kind of it's kind of in the same category of Daniel Craig's like Southern accent. Like they're just going for it. Like it's not for accuracy; it's to make them look ridiculous.
They're going in. They're having a great time, and that's the thing you could tell with a lot of these comedies that Soderbergh helms. And like I said, this may not be the only heist movie that we talk about today. So we'll see which other one we talk about. It may involve a number, or it may not involve a number. We'll have to see, and some form of water. But like I said, we'll see. So now moving on to our number 4s. What is your pick?
All right, my number 4 is Erin Brockovich. My personal winner is the great Soderbergh off of 2000. Respect to Traffic, but I think this is a better movie. This is also one that I watched recently for the first time. I'm not like a huge on movies that are, based on real life events or biographies or anything like that. But I ended up really loving this movie. I just thought it was so fun. Julia Roberts is amazing, of course, but like she's really amazing in this movie. And I think it's such a great like underdog story without being like cloying or, like it has all the stuff that underdog stories have, but it never feels cliche or overdone or anything like that. Like it's just, it's a story about a woman who finds out people who are hurting and she cares and she goes out of her way to help them. And that's it. And it also has the greatest Sheryl Crow needle drop at the end. You know, I need to acknowledge that. It's so great.
Oh, that's a great film. I hate that I didn't put it on my list. It was so close to making it. I do believe that I had this discussion with someone recently. Someone asked me, what do you think is not your favorite Soderbergh performance, but you think the best performance in the Soderbergh movie? I think when looking at the best, Julia Roberts is right up there. Like, it's a phenomenal performance. She won the Oscar for this. And yeah, I mean, it's an incredible story. It's just so engaging. And, you know, we don't really get a lot of movies from Soderbergh where, I mean, he's done a lot of films where we've had a female lead, but I think that this is one of the best characters that he's ever brought to life. And yet this is a real person. Like, he brought this story to life very, very well. And again, it's incredible how this is a real life story. And yeah, Julia Roberts, I mean, I'm not like a crazy fan of her. She's never been my favorite, but I do think that this is the best performance she's ever given. I don't think she's ever been better. And I think it's so cool that also the real Aaron Brockovich makes a little appearance in this movie too. I think that's great. And it's crazy too that Soderbergh had 2 Best Director noms, 2 Best Picture nominees. I mean, is the other one on my list? We'll have to see. Well, you pay patience, everyone. But I don't think that's ever happened before where a director had gotten 2 Best Director nominations in the same year. Can you imagine if like he got these 2 nominations and he didn't even win? Like, can you imagine how crazy that would have been? Like,
that would be crazy.
Like, oh, I get 2 Best Director nominations in the same year. Oh, I don't walk away with 1. Oh,
but he did.
He luckily did, and very deservedly so. So my number 4, I feel like, is regarded by a lot of people as maybe their favorite film from him. And I know that it's so disappointing that this is so low on my list. My number 4 is Sex, Lies, and Videotape. This is one that I just watched for the first time very recently. I bought the Criterion a little while ago. And I remember being so infatuated with the cover, like Annie McDowell just looking into my soul. I'm like, oh my God. Oh yeah, it's a Soderbergh movie too. Yep, sold. I watched it, I popped it in, and it blew my expectations. I had no idea where it was going to go. It surprised the heck out of me the entire time. And I mean, can we talk about how gorgeous this cast is? It's insane. Annie McDowell, seriously. I mean, oh my God.
She's a beautiful woman.
She really is. I feel like beautiful is an understatement when describing Annie McDowell from not only from the 80s when this movie came out, but Annie McDowell still looks amazing. She still looks great to this day. And then she brought us her daughter, Margaret Qualley, who's also just so fucking talented and so gorgeous. I love her so much. The lead singer of Bleachers is very lucky that he's engaged to her. He is so fucking lucky. It is unfair. it is so unfair. I don't like that. But regarding Sex, Lies, and Videotape, very interesting independent drama thriller. There's so much going on in this movie, and you have all these troubling people. You know, nobody in this movie is perfect. Everybody is flawed in their own ways, and they're all going through various different things. One is having a bad relationship with their husband. One person is new in town, and then he's doing some weird, corrupt stuff. And then said husband is having an affair with someone very close to said wife. It's absolutely wild. It's bonkers, and the entire film is pretty engrossing. And it's a very special film because it won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival in '89, and it made Soderbergh the youngest solo director to win the award. He was only 26 at the time. That's 2 years older than me. That's fucking nuts. Here I am at 24 doing nothing, and here he is at 26 winning the highest award at the Cannes Film Festival. I mean, oh my God, dude, like incredible stuff. Truly phenomenal stuff. One of my favorite directorial debuts that I've watched in a very long time. I mean, the acting across the board is great. James Spader, he scares the fuck out of me. Anytime I see him in something, he legit crawls under my skin. He has he seems like a very down to earth dude. I've seen him in interviews. He seems like a very nice guy, but oh my God, he knows how to play creepy and fucked up so beautifully. It is insane how he's able to do it. Really enjoyed Peter Gallagher's performance here too. I thought he was really good. And I want to give a shout out to Laura San Giacomo, who played the character of Cynthia. Not going to say her affiliation with anybody, but she, I mean, oh my God, another incredibly gorgeous person. Holy shit. And I've never seen her in anything before, so it was cool watching her in this. The entire cast did a great job. I think the film is just so engrossing, and it's a cool concept. It's a very cool concept, and it's a great debut. You know, sometimes when you watch a directorial debut and you could tell that the director is still getting their footing, but it doesn't really work as well as their later films. This is one of those scenarios to where, yes, Soderbergh is clearly getting his footing in as a filmmaker, but it's one of those films that's like really on the same level as the films that he made later on, whether they had a bigger cast, a bigger budget, more financing. Like, this is an incredible debut, truly incredible debut. It really left quite an impression on me. I remember messaging you on Twitter. I'm like, Bailey, this film is fucking me up and I don't like it, but I also really like it at the same time. No, I love this movie and I wish it was higher on my list, but there are just 3 films that I love a smidge more than this one. So those are my thoughts on Sex, Lies, and Videotape. Are you going to pass, or is this not on your list?
Pass. It's higher on my list.
I can't wait to see where it is on your list. So now, number 3, what do you got?
Okay, so this is where things started getting a little dicey, and it was really hard for me to pick the top 3. But my number 3 is Ocean's 11, which is crazy for me to put it at number 3. But, you know, but I Ocean's 11 is genuinely like the most rewatchable film probably I've seen ever made. Probably. It's just like, it's such a ball from start to finish. You know, obviously everybody is doing so many great things in it. I think it's just like, again, like it's that precise filmmaking. Like every time I watch it, I catch, you know, more little details that show that, you know, from the beginning, like Rusty and Danny knew exactly what was going to happen up until the end. You know, even when it seems like they're surprised, like it's a surprise that they've accounted for, and you know they're ready to move forward. It's like surgical filmmaking, and it's so fun to watch. And even when you know the outcome, you know, there's still like, there's so much to catch. There's just like, you know, beyond the details of what's happening, like there's so much joy, like just watching everybody interact and like stepping into these like year-long friendships and, you know, feeling like you're part of it. It's just so great. I love this movie so much, as does everybody else, but we're talking about me.
Besides Danny Ocean, do you have any favorite, like a particular favorite character of the 11?
Let's see. I love Julia Roberts in it. I think Tess is great. And I think that like the more that I see it, I think of Ocean's 11 as like a love story. Like it's a romance, you know, like
Absolutely.
he's doing this to, you know, get Tess back, but mostly just to show her like, you know, you can do better. And, you know, I'm having a lot of fun doing this. Like it's love for Tess, it's love for being a thief, it's love for, you know, having fun with the boys. But yeah, Tess, and I think I forget Elliot Gould's character's name, but I love him. Elliot Gould.
Ruben,
yes. I love his glasses and his outfits, and like in Ocean's 11 when they go to see him and he's like, thanks for helping me out and with the guy in the place with the thing. It's just so great.
Oh man. You're from Chicago, right? Yeah. Get the fuck in the house. A pass for me. This is a pass for me. So when people hear what my number 3 is, they're gonna be like, "You put this higher than Sex, Lies, and Videotape?" Hey, you're goddamn right, I did. My number 3 is one of the most surprising films I have ever seen in my life. I remember watching the trailer for this movie being like, okay, this is so not a Bryan Sutfield movie. This is 100% not a movie for me. I like everybody involved, but this 100% is not a movie for me. And then the reviews came out from people I trust. And I'm like, okay, I will give this a watch when it comes to streaming or premium, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So then I watched it as soon as it comes to premium. And as soon as it ended, I said, holy crap. This was one of the biggest surprises I have ever seen. Magic Mike, baby. Magic Mike. I think Warner Bros. Deserves like a massive round of applause because they fooled everybody. They made everyone think that this was going to be a movie that was entirely centered around male stripping. And yes, there are male strip scenes in this movie, of course. But it's not just about that. It's about someone figuring out their place and their purpose. And I think this film contains some of the most breathtaking shots, dance sequences aside. I think straight up, this is one of the best looking films that Soderbergh's ever shot. I think it's a film that is beautifully directed. I think the screenplay is fantastic. And I think the whole cast is just really outstanding. Obviously, this was a very personal story for Channing Tatum because when he was younger, he was a male stripper. You know, he performed in these nightclubs and did all these things and everything. And what I really liked about the movie was that it found a way to appeal to everybody. You know, obviously, there were the women that went there to see the dance sequences, and they got them. They got them. But I also really like how there's a story with this film. I like that you're following Mike, and he's such a well-versed character. And Channon's performance, I think, is fantastic. I think when Channon works with Soderbergh, that's when Channon is at his best, in my opinion. And he's worked with Soderbergh like 5 times at this point, maybe 6. And obviously, they're filming the next Magic Mike right now, which I mean, we'll talk about the anticipation for that later on. But yeah, I love this movie. It was such a big surprise for me. The way that I was surprised by this movie kind of reminded me so much, fittingly, another Warner Bros. Movie, Crazy Stupid Love. That movie looked like the most basic romantic comedy ever. And even though it has romantic comedy tropes, it surprised the hell out of me because it was a lot more than just being a rom-com. It was a lot deeper than that. And that's what this movie was. It was a lot deeper than being just the male stripper movie. And I remember a lot of girls were very disappointed in this movie. I just wanted to see the strip scenes. Why did we get this story? It was so boring and everyone just kept talking. I just wanted to see some dancing. Listen, you got your dancing and it was phenomenal, okay? But the story was really great because of how it was written and how it was directed. And I mean, like, I love the consensus for Rotten Tomatoes. Like, the way it's worded is just so funny. I have to read it. Magic Mike's sensitive direction, smart screenplay, and strong performances allow audience to have their beefcake and eat it too. That's a great way to describe it because, you know, the audience will eat that shit up when they have the sequences where they're dancing. But I really love the story. And I love the characters. I mean, remember when Alex Pettyfer was trying to be like a thing? Like he was in a million things around this time. He was in that shitty Vanessa Hudgens movie. He was in that I Am Number 4. What else was he in at this time?
He was in that remake of Endless Love.
That's right. What else was he in? I feel like he was in some other big project. Like I feel like he was in something else. Yeah, that might have been it. Yeah, that was pretty much it because then he really didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I will say there's a really funny short sequence where he does a pretty, I'm not gonna lie, a pretty spot on Schwarzenegger impression.
He
I'm not gonna
does.
lie. I'm not gonna lie. It was a pretty great Schwarzenegger impression. Like he said, like all of Schwarzenegger's iconic lines and meshed them into one sentence. I was like, damn, this is actually really fucking good. Like this is pretty great. And I mean, the rest of the cast is great besides Chan. I think Alex actually did a pretty good job in this movie. I thought he was really good. I liked his banter with Chan Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Balmer was great. Joe Manganiello, he was great.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my God, I don't like to use the word snub very lightly, but I'm sorry. Matthew McConaughey was robbed of a nomination. He was fucking incredible in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my God, he was so good in this. And I mean, like, the fact says the law says you cannot touch, but I think I see a lot of lawbreakers up in this house tonight. Oh my God.
Exactly.
It's so good. His delivery of that was perfect. And this was during the area where Matthew McConaughey was like really like picking great role one after the other.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing like Killer Joe, Mud, Magic Mike, Dallas Buyers Club, Wolf of Wall Street, Interstellar. He was picking great film one after the other. It was an impressive time for the McConaughey. Oh, and True Detective season 1, of course, he was in that at this time as well. But no, I love when movies subvert my expectations. I love when you walk into a movie expecting one thing, then you end up getting something completely different, which, you know, a lot of people could complain about how this movie was very mismarketed. And sure, maybe it was to an extent, but like it was still very entertaining, but it was also a lot deeper than you thought it was going to be. And I really loved that about this movie. And that's a credit to Soderbergh. Truly a massive surprise. One of his best films, I think, he's ever directed. And yeah, I love following this character. I have not seen the sequel. I have not seen Magic Mike Extra Extra Large, but I will have to see it before The Last Dance comes out. And again, we'll talk about our hype for that later on. So
you definitely do, because Andy McDowell's in the second one. So, you know, Soderbergh didn't direct that one, but it's a spiritual, you know, reunion.
you had me at Andy McDowell's in that one. now I have to put that at the top of everything I have to watch. Like screw everything I'm watching for future episodes. I gotta watch Magic Mike XXL next. So Magic Mike, are you gonna pass or is this not on your list?
This one is not on my list. Also a hard exclusion because I love this movie for exactly the same reasons that you do. I feel like Magic Mike is like, I always tell people, you know, because they're like, oh, you know, I don't want to watch that. Especially guys, you know, like they're like, oh, it's about male strippers. I don't want to watch that, you know, whatever. And I'm like, actually, Magic Mike is more about like the fallout of the recession and growing up and, you know, and coming to terms with your identity and how hard it is to
an identity crisis movie. That's really what this movie is.
Exactly. Like, it's like it's a surprisingly like sad and like introspective movie, considering that, you know, the main billing is that there's male strippers in it.
Oh, it's fair. It's a pretty sad movie. Like there's the whole relationship that goes on with Mike and Olivia Munn's character is like a real emotional crux to the story. And then meanwhile, obviously he's trying to do something with Cody Horn, who plays Alex Pettyfer's sister in the movie. And I mean, like again, it's a lot deeper than people would think, which is why like the movie I think works as well as it does. Like you said, like, you know, it's a movie about discovering yourself and, you know, dealing with an identity crisis of sort. And, you know, you don't really get that. You would think walking into the movie, you're just going to get this stripper extravaganza. And yes, it is that, but it's a lot deeper than that, which is why I think a lot of people, and guys especially, I feel like that's why a lot of guys like the movie. They don't want to admit they like it, but come on, they like it. They like
exactly. It. And it's fun too. Like, I think, you know, you kind of get a taste of it in Magic Mike, and then you get a lot of it in Magic Mike XXL. But it's also about like, you know, male friendship and their relationships and kind of like the way that Matthew McConaughey uses Channing Tatum's character, you know, he's like, you know, the center of the show, and, you know, he's the money maker, and he's like, oh, you know, I'm going to cut you in on this deal and we're going to go together. This is going to be a business deal. You're going to be able to grow up and get out of the stripping, but he keeps like cutting him down, you know. It's like, it's so good. And it's, to your point about Matthew McConaughey being snubbed, like, absolutely. I think this role is so great for him because it's kind of like the perfect marriage of, you know, his early 2000s roles where, you know, he's doing all these rom-coms. He's kind of like, you know, he's there to be looked at. He's dumb, but he's cute, he's nice, and then, you know, these later, more serious roles, you know, where he is playing more complex, complicated characters. Like, Dallas is so good because, you know, he's bad, but he's bad in such a normal way, and it's kind of like not necessarily what you'd expect from somebody running a strip club, you know, like.
Exactly.
He's, especially a male strip club, because, you know, I think we're very accustomed to seeing strip clubs with women, and, you know, the guy running the club is a piece of shit. He's bad to all the girls, you know, he's taking advantage of them, whatever. But, like, you kind of expect a guy running a male strip club to be like, you know, one of the guys, like, we're all in this together, guys, whatever. And he used to be a stripper, so he would get it from their perspective, but clearly he's using them. And I think just like that dynamic there is so fascinating, and the way that like Soderbergh communicates it, you know, not only in the script but just visually, is so great to watch.
100% agree with you on that. So now our top two. Now, obviously, there is a film that I brought up that you passed on, and there's a film that you brought up that I passed on. So I'm really curious to know where that particular film lies. So, Bailey, what is your second favorite Soderbergh film of all time?
So my second favorite is Sexwise and Videotape, because that one, I think I watched it again like last night, and then, or no, 2 nights ago. But the first time I watched it was kind of like on a whim, like a day that I woke up like super early, way earlier than I needed to. And I was like, you know what? Let me throw on this, you know, super sexual movie at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And just like you, like, I was totally blown away, because I don't really know like what I was expecting, but I think I just went in kind of blind and came out like, wow, like that is, you know, a movie, to quote Harry Styles, like a movie, a real film going to the
Cinema.
movie. Yeah, exactly. It's so great. And I think that, you know, is a real like distillation of what Soderbergh is good at, which is, you know, human relationships, like power dynamics, kind of the weird kind of taboo things that fascinate people, you know. I think, like you said, like James Spader is great at playing kind of creepy, weird guys, but I think this is like a great role for him because he is weird, but it's in such a like neutered way almost. Like, you know, if you've seen the movie, like that's kind of a pun, but it's like he's a freak, but like it's like there's no teeth to it, like, and everybody kind of becomes complicit in what he's doing. Like it's not like he's watching some woman from afar, like, you know, totally without her permission, creeping, stalking her, whatever. Like everyone is totally consenting to what's happening, and it's weird, but, you know, it's like this bizarre form of intimacy that he's cultivated after, you know, whatever happens. And he says he's impotent. He can't have sex, or he won't have sex. It's like not really clear. Impotent seems to be a bit of an exaggeration, but yeah, I kind of like that. It's such a fascinating thing to watch, this different approach to intimacy, you know, alongside Andie MacDowell and Peter Gallagher's relationship, where she's like, you know, for some reason, like, I'm just disgusted, like, every time he tries to touch me. And, you know, he kind of tries, and then she pushes him away, and then he runs away to, you know, his sister. And it's just, I think there's so many fascinating things at play there. And like you said, like, everybody's performance is amazing. And when James Spader gets Andie MacDowell to do her videotape, and Peter Gallagher, I love the way that it's framed, because, you know, Peter Gallagher finds out that Andie MacDowell has done this videotape, and then he runs to James Spader's house, you know, he beats him up, locks him out of the house, and starts watching the videotape. And then, you know, what we're watching is what he's watching, but we're kind of in the moment, and it feels like, you know, you're right there experiencing this kind of level of intimacy. And then, you know, they're talking, and then Andie MacDowell turns it around on James Spader and starts asking him questions. And he feels like super uncomfortable with it, because it's never supposed to be about him. It's supposed to be about, you know, watching, or, you know, receiving intimacy rather than giving it. And then, you know, you kind of see this like huge dynamic change there. It's just such a great movie, and I love watching it.
It's so good. I mean, it's you pretty much nailed everything on the head. It really is excellent. And I mean, like, as someone who went to film school, it's just so amazing to see a debut like that. And it just left me shook. And I definitely want to watch it again, because I feel like it could go to like a 5-star for me on second viewing. And yeah, I mean, it's so good. It's true. It's Andie MacDowell. I mean, wow, truly wow. My number 2 is a film that I passed on earlier, and that's Ocean's 11. I love heist movies so much, and I really think that this, like, they simply just don't make movies like this anymore. You watch in a heavy ensemble piece like this, and it's very hard to replicate what Soderbergh did 20 years ago with this movie. Like you said, it is so entertaining. It's so flashy. You get those sprinkles of what Soderbergh incorporates into his very artsy films, but it finds a way still catering towards the mainstream audience because of how likable the cast is. The great needle drops in this movie, by the way. Oh my God, that's another thing that's so good about Soderbergh, is that he's really great when it comes to putting music in his films, whether it's the score or the soundtrack itself. There's a lot of great bops in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks stunning. And the entire cast, I mean, oh my God, the ensemble here is truly phenomenal. Like, everyone has you could tell that they all had a great time working together. You could tell that they had a great banter together. Nothing felt forced. Nothing felt hammy or goofy. It all felt genuine, in my opinion, which is something that's very key to an ensemble piece like this, is that everyone needs to work off each other really well, or else this isn't going to work. And thankfully, because Soderbergh got a lot of these fantastic actors, it found a way of working as well as it did. I mean, look at this ensemble: George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, the late great Bernie Mac. Oh my God. It's watching these movies, it made me sad that he's not with us anymore.
Yeah.
Elliot Gould, Casey Affleck, Scott Kahn, Don Cheadle, Carl Reiner. I want to shout out the guy that plays Yen. I'm not going to pronounce his name, but he's incredible. And then Eddie Jamison as Livingston Dell. For a long time, I thought his name was Livingston Deli. I thought that was his name, but I'm like, who names themselves Livingston Deli?
Livingston Dell is
that's close enough, but
yeah.
Oh man, no, but and then of course Julia Roberts, the addition of her, she's great as Tess, and Andy Garcia as Terry. What a delicious villain! I'll just delicious, just truly
Absolutely.
a great villain, truly a great character actor who really deserves a lot more recognition. Like, I feel like he really doesn't get as much film work as he should. I know he recently just had the Father of the Bride adaptation that just came to HBO Max, which I heard very good things about. I haven't seen it yet, but no, the entire cast here is great. And I mean, yeah, and I love telling this story regarding this movie. So in the beginning of the movie and at the very end of the movie, Danny Ocean is released from prison. Now, this isn't necessarily an exciting thing, but I guess it kind of is. So the prison that he's at and the prison that they shot on location at is only less than 10 minutes away from where I live, which is so cool because it's like they have shot a lot of movies at that prison. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the appeal is with that prison. Fittingly, they shot another Matt Damon movie there called Rounders with him and Edward Norton. They shot that there. And they also shot primarily a lot of The Hurricane with Denzel Washington there because the guy that Denzel played in that movie was actually in that prison. Like, that's where he was. That's where he served his sentence, which is just so crazy to me. It's like, oh, I only live 10 minutes away from there. I mean, it's not great to announce that you live so close to a prison, but it's really cool that, like, oh, hey, George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Julia Roberts. Like, can you imagine you're just driving down that road, then all of a sudden you see a film crew and you're like, oh, who's here? Oh, George Clooney. Oh, Brad Pitt. Oh, Julia Roberts. And you're like,
yeah,
like,
right.
I would be shook. I would be shook. And then literally down the road is where I got my driver's license. It's crazy. But no, I mean, it's a great heist film. It's so much fun. It's so entertaining. And also the story is just great. Like, yeah, it's fun and everything, but like these characters, you care about all of them. They all have their moment to shine, even the ones that have as little time as possible. Casey Affleck, he has little time. Just talking like this and everything. His voice. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, doing all his Casey, and then Scott Conn moving his hands around like his father and everything. Just, oh my God. I love this ensemble so much. It's like pitch perfect. And it does make me think of a film that came out many years later, a film that I personally really love because it makes me think of Ocean's 11. It's not as good as Ocean's 11. It's a film called Tower Heist, which unfortunately the guy who directed it is a piece of shit. But the cast that they fittingly also with Casey Affleck. Casey Affleck's also in that movie, which is funny. But the ensemble for that kind of mirrors this one a little bit, where it's like this really cool ensemble, but like you like all the characters and everyone's banter works off each other really, really well. So we don't get a lot of great heist movies anymore. And I mean, I would say that in terms of the studio heist films that we've gotten, this is hands down one of the best that I've ever seen. And obviously the sequels are not on our list, but I enjoy both of them. I think Ocean's 12 kind of gets a bad rep. I don't think it's nowhere near as good as the first one, but I don't think it's that bad of a sequel. I've seen way worse sequels than that.
I'm an Ocean's 12 defender. So, even though it's not on my list, I love that movie. I think it's so, like, the fun is palpable. And it's kind of nonsense, like, the sequence with the lasers and all that stuff and the Julia Roberts bit,
I was just about to say that was that was fucking priceless. That was incredible.
Like, it's just such a fun movie. And I think, this is kind of a tangent, but one of the other things I love about his movies are, I love the montages. I love these little sequences that are, no dialogue, set to, either a song or just the score or whatever. And it's not even like, sometimes it's, just a task being done. And sometimes it's like, he's establishing a whole relationship over the space of this like 2-minute montage. But he's so good at it.
Yes,
and
he is.
Ocean's 12 is one of the like prime examples, I think, of him doing that, like, relationship establishing, when Catherine Zeta-Jones and Brad Pitt, meet each other, and then you have this montage that I don't even know what the song is, but I love the song.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah. and it's like you can feel like the weight of this relationship within those 2 minutes. Like you're immediately like buying into like the stakes,
100%.
like, he's so good at it. And I think like that, honestly, that was like one of the main reasons that I defend Ocean's 12. Because I'm like, you know what, like, say what you will about, the heist antics, whatever. But I think like in terms of, kind of the emotion and the warmth and joy in this movie, like, I love it so much.
Yeah. I mean, all three of them are so good. They're just so good. It's a very good. I guess you could say one of the better trilogies that we have out there. It's really really fun stuff. So now we get to our number ones. I'm I think I know what Bailey's number one is. I think I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I love whenever I'm wrong. Of course, I love whenever I'm right too, but I love being caught off guard. So, Bailey, what is your favorite Soderbergh film of all time?
I think that you're probably thinking what my number one is, which is Out of Sight.
I called it. It was so obvious. You know, when you gave me that, when you gave me the hint off air, you're like, "Oh, I'm wearing my Out of Sight T-shirt." I'm like, "Oh yeah, she did say that." Well, it all makes sense now. But in my head, I was thinking maybe you're wearing that shirt just to spite everybody who does have it as their favorite film of all time, because you're like, "No, I have this shirt purposely just because I hate the movie and everyone who loves it is crazy." But it's
no.
Why is it your favorite of all time from him?
I love Out of Sight. As you mentioned, I'm wearing my Out of Sight shirt because I couldn't find the hat that Danny DeVito has. Oh. Because he's an executive producer on Out of Sight. But anyway, so I love it. I think it's one of J-Lo's best roles, if not her best. It's just like, I don't know. It's just, I think this is one where it's just like, I feel it in my bones that it's my favorite movie from him. It's, you know, it's that familiar territory, I guess, not at that point in his career, but for us of, you know, it's a heist movie. George Clooney is very good at what he does. He's trying to get out of a spot, you know. But I think like with Ocean's 11, you know, it's fun. It's silly. Like, he's doing a heist, but like really he's, you know, stealing back a girl, not money. And then with Out of Sight, like the stakes are like, they're a little bit more real, you know. He's escaped from jail. He, you know, he can't work a 9-to-5 job because he's never worked a 9-to-5 job. Like, he's not really built for the real world. You know, he has Don Cheadle again doing great things in this movie. Don Cheadle's kind of like antagonizing him. Like, he's a guy that, you know, will kind of go to the more violent lengths that crimes sometimes require. Whereas George Clooney, like, you know, he wants to be in and out. Like, he does kind of have fun with it, but this particular instance is a lot more grounded. And then, you know, all of a sudden, like, he has this plan to get out and, you know, continue his life in crime. And then he meets Karen Sisco, J-Lo. And then, you know, that kind of throws a wrench in everything. And he's like, whoa, like, what have I been doing with my life? Like, this girl is, you know, I think it's like, I love the conversation, you know, that they have in the scene where they're in the trunk and they're talking about movies. And they talk about 3 Days of the Condor. And she says how, you know, she thinks that it's a little unrealistic that Faye Dunaway and Robert Redford fell in love so fast. And then, of course, that's what they do. They fall in love, like, immediately, you know.
And it's like, I love it so much.
Exactly. Sometimes I like, it's just what you need in a movie, you know. Like, you need him. I think Steven Soderbergh is really good at kind of telling you, like, up front what's going to happen. And then you kind of, like, you know, sometimes it's obvious, and then sometimes you're like, oh, you know, he kind of indicated that earlier. But yeah, I think like the chemistry between Jennifer Lopez and George Clooney in this movie is so great. And I love the idea of, like, you know, two people who, you know, for whatever reason aren't supposed to be together. You know, somebody disapproves, in this case, cop and criminal. And, you know, they find some place that's kind of like neutral ground where they can have, like, I think in the movie they say an interlude where, you know, those kind of real world limitations don't matter and they can be together. And I think like that is like some of the most romantic stuff that I've seen in a movie. And it's so great to watch. Yeah, I love it.
I know that when making my list, I knew that I had to just I couldn't find any room to put it on my list. And I feel so bad because universally a lot of people seem to have this maybe as their favorite. I
Mhm.
earlier before I said that maybe a lot of people have Sexwise and Videotape as their favorite, but I feel like realistically everybody universally loves this one. Like this is one that everybody seems to adore and eat up. And I mean, yeah, it's great. It's so funny and it's so charming and it's so great. And I mean, yeah, Clooney's obviously great. And Jennifer Lopez really is amazing. Best performance, I mean, that's tough because her work in Hustlers is fucking phenomenal.
I
And
do. I
like,
do love her in Hustlers.
and
But I loved her in this first.
I also loved her in this first because there was a period where I'm like, you know what? The only good movie that J-Lo was in was Out of Sight. But then she did Hustlers and everyone was like, where was this for the last 20 years, J-Lo? Like, yeah, it's nice that you tell us to get on the floor, but where's the good acting? And now here we are. And now I love the movie and I love Don Cheadle in it as well. I love slimy, evil Don Cheadle. And, I can't believe I didn't even bring this up when it came to the Oceans movies. I love his very Cockney accent whenever he talks. This is bloody weird. I love it. At first I was a little turned off. I'm like, Don, I don't know how I feel about you doing this accent, but it works because you're so good at what you do. And can we also talk about how Clooney hasn't aged like a day at all?
I
J-Lo
know.
hasn't aged a day at all.
I know. They
And
both look
randomly,
so good.
and Don Cheadle, honestly, he's looked the same for like the last 20 years. Like I was
Really has.
recently rewatching some clips from Boogie Nights. Still
Mhm.
looks the exact same. And that
Mhm.
movie's like 25 years old. It's insane.
Mhm.
I'm like, Don, what the fuck, man?
What's your
Like you look
secret?
great. But no, I mean, Out of Sight is so good. It probably would be like my number 6 or my number 7. It was like really
Mhm.
close to making the top 5. But
Mhm.
my number 1, you brought it up before. You went with
Mhm.
the other film that came out in 2000. So
Oh.
my favorite Soderbergh movie is Traffic, which I just watched for the first time, finally in
Mhm.
its entirety a few days ago.
Mhm.
I love myself a good crime film. I love myself a
Mhm.
good thriller, like a crime drama, crime thriller, what have you. And this, I could be very hit or miss with stories that are, put together, but they don't necessarily tie together completely.
Mhm.
And there's 3 separate storylines going on with this movie. And the ensemble here is incredibly massive. Like with pretty much every other Soderbergh movie, I mean, it's massive. And the ensemble has the likes of Michael Douglas, Don Cheadle, Benicio del Toro, Dennis Quaid, Catherine Zeta-Jones, um, fucking Topher Grace. What?
Yeah, I
like,
know.
like James Brolin, Stephen Bauer, Benjamin Brad, uh, Erica Christensen,
Mhm.
like Louis Guzman, like what is this fucking ensemble? Like, holy shit. um, it's tackling a story like this where it deals with, illegal drug trade and, it talks about enforcers, politicians, drug traffickers. Um, it's a very interesting way to bring this story to life. And I think the way it's brought is pretty perfect. Soderbergh walked away with the Best Director award for this movie, which is you wouldn't think that a film like this would take home a very high profile award like the Oscar for Best Director. Why didn't it
Mhm.
win Best Picture? Honestly, beats me. I get very annoyed sometimes whenever a director wins an Oscar, but then the film that
But not best picture.
not
Yeah.
Best Picture exactly. Now, Grant, let me be very clear. I love Gladiator. That's a great fucking movie. That would not have been my personal pick. I think this should have walked away with the award. And um the filmmaking on display here is really excellent because what Soderbergh does really, really well is that when it comes to each story, there's a different color grade for each of them.
Mhm.
Like the stuff happening in Mexico with Benicio del Toro's character is super fucking grainy. It is super grainy. And then you cut to the stuff with Michael Douglas where it's very blue and it's like very on and off. Like certain sequences are blue, some sequences are a normal color. And then you have these sequences with Catherine Zeta-Jones where they're a lot brighter. And I like how everything stands out differently visually. And I love how this is very different from a lot of Hollywood productions where, you know, it's a political thriller, a crime drama, and I think everyone across the board is phenomenal here. Benicio del Toro walked away with the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, and I don't know if this is my favorite performance that he's given, but it is one of the best that he's ever done. And I liked how, you know, later on he kind of went back to playing a character like this, but a lot more meaner in Sicario, which, I mean, again, another snub. Like, how do you not nominate that performance? That should have easily been nominated. Like, what the actual fuck? Anyway, I digress. I loved Michael Douglas in the movie. He plays the father figure really, really well. I love Don Cheadle here as the cop, and I love his banter with Luis Guzman. I love their back and forth. It's really great. And then Catherine Zeta-Jones was fantastic. Another actor that has aged like fine wine. I've talked about Catherine Zeta-Jones more on this show in the last couple of weeks than I ever anticipated. It's absolutely insane. You know, you brought up her in Ocean's 12, and she's obviously worked with Soderbergh many times. I recently talked about The Terminal on this podcast, which is a criminally underrated movie. Oh my God. Oh my God. If anyone out there has not seen The Terminal, you need to watch it like now, please. But no, I think the way that this story is presented was the best way to do it. Now, it could have been like a mini series. You could have made this into a mini series, but I like how they jump back and forth. And it doesn't feel very jarring. And I know that sometimes when you have these films to where there's multiple stories going on at once and they're jumping back and forth from one to the other, it could be a little annoying and a little jarring, and it could hurt your head. And you could be a little confused of what is which. But I like how Soderbergh is able to, like, without telling us, like, oh, this story is obviously separated from this story and that story. I like how they don't all tie together necessarily in the end. I like how it's not like, oh, hey, it's like Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones meet together at the end. I like how it's all separated from one another. And seriously, I mean, the ensemble here is absolutely magnificent. And the stuff with Michael Douglas and his daughter, I mean, oh my God, like, it left me shaken up. And you know what? It felt weird seeing Topher Grace play a drug addict. I'm like, Eric Foreman, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
get back to the basement.
Get back to the basement. Exactly. Get back to the fucking basement. Oh my God. And I've talked about him way too much on this podcast recently too. Like, talk about that 70s show, Spider-Man, Black Klansman. Now this, and I love, also, could we just talk about how hilarious his little cameos are in the Ocean's movies?
Yes, absolutely.
Especially that second one when he has the long hair and he's in the hotel room. Oh my God. It's so
I know.
good.
I love thinking of Steven Soderbergh, like, being a huge That 70s Show fan and being like, I gotta get this kid on my movie.
Absolutely. I like to think that every single filmmaker that casts Topher Grace and someone is a That 70s Show fan. Like, I like to think that when Spike Lee came to him and said, oh, hey, you're playing David Duke. Also, I'm a fan of That 70s Show.
Yeah.
Like, I like to think that that's exactly how the meeting went down when Spike Lee said, oh, hey, you're playing David Duke.
Yeah, right.
Completely different from Eric Foreman. But no, Traffic, it also, the ending is so, like, it's a very beautiful ending, in my opinion. Just ending on that shot, like, staying, like, for 2 minutes on that shot at the baseball game in Mexico.
Yeah.
I mean, it really left me shaken up. And I'm not going to lie, I got very emotional watching it. And it was a difficult film to watch. I wasn't anticipating the subject matter to be as gruesome as it was. But then again, with Soderbergh, he doesn't shy away from tackling these kinds of stories. And I like how realistic it was. I like how grounded it was. And when it got intense, it really got intense. And yeah, it moves pretty slow, but what I like about that is that it takes its time. You get to know like the gist of all these characters, and you get to understand their morals and what their purposes are and what exactly it is that they're doing and how they add to the stories that they're involved in. And I really love that so much. I mean, this film, you know, got nominated for many Oscars. It won 4. Like I said, it won Best Director for Soderbergh. It won Best Supporting Actor for Benicio del Toro. Stephen Gaghan won Best Adapted Screenplay, and then it won Best Film Editing as well. And yeah, I mean, it's a great film, truly. And I think it's not only is it my favorite thing that he's directed, I also think it's the best thing he's directed. So I really loved Traffic. I was really blown away by it, and I cannot wait to watch it again. I mean, it's not something I'm in any rush to watch again, but I know that when I watch it again, I will definitely pick up on things that I had missed the first viewing. And yeah, I mean, the film is really, really great. So obviously, with Traffic not being on your list, what are your thoughts on the film?
I also really like Traffic. I think, you know, to your point about it being grounded, I think, like, you know, in contrast with things like Sicario still has, you know, an eye towards kind of the more, I guess, local effects of, you know, the drug trade and stuff. But I think, you know, there's still a lot of focus on the spectacle, like, you know, like these shooting scenes and kind of like the more action oriented stuff. Whereas Traffic, like, that's kind of just like a consequence of this, you know, system. Like, it's very much concentrated on like what are the day-to-day effects of the drug trade, and how does it kind of, you know, trickle down to people that you wouldn't think are affected, like, you know, say the drug czar's daughter, you know, who gets addicted and, you know, kind of ruins her life and all that stuff. Like, I think it has a very local and kind of global systematic approach to, you know, how does the drug trade work? Like, how does something that happens, you know, among these cartels in Mexico kind of transfer over to, you know, kids on the street in wherever they are, Ohio. And yeah, I think, you know, everyone's doing such great work in it. I think Michael Douglas, especially, kind of going from, you know, war on drugs are like, you know, oh, like they're all making mistakes, whatever. I think there's like a really great moment where he's talking to, like, I think the equivalent of his job in Mexico, their kind of drug czar, if you will. And he's like, he asked something about like, oh, what about the people who take the drugs? Like, you know, what do you do to help them, like, when they're in recovery and whatever? And the guy from Mexico, he's like, well, that's the decision they made. Like, if they die, like, that's fine. Just, you know, more people off the street that we don't have to worry about.
Right.
And you can see, like, and this is before, I don't know if it's before or like during his, you know, after he's found out about his daughter's drug problem, but you can see like how much that statement affects him and kind of how that, you know, knowing about that mindset kind of moves him forward. Like, he asks his aides about, you know, what are we going to do to help people in recovery and stuff like that. And then he becomes like more and more committed to that aspect of his job, that rather than, you know, all this kind of like fruitless policing and, you know, trying to, you know, all this, the more action oriented stuff, I guess. It becomes much more about like the humanist approach to, the drug trade rather than, you know, that, you know, the more action oriented stuff. And then like, I think too, like I think I was surprised how, you know, I guess like cynical it was about the establishment, especially for a movie, you know, that's like pre 9/11, but like, you know, we're still talking about like, it's, you know, we've got pretty big movements at that time, war on drugs, all that type of stuff. I was pretty surprised at how cynical it was about like the efficacy of policing and you know, the bureaucracy, especially American bureaucracy, when it comes to drugs and that. I really, even though it's not on my list, I really did enjoy it.
Yeah, and also it's kind of crazy that when watching it now, you know, over 20 years after it came out, it still feels very timely to what's going on
Mm-hmm.
now. I mean, obviously it's not like things are different now than they were 20 years ago when this movie came out, but there's still plenty of things that are tackled in this film that are still going on now in
Mm-hmm.
2022. And it's nuts. Like, and when you watch a movie that comes out in a certain time or is focused on a certain time, and yet it still finds a way of being relevant to today's society. I mean, that's insane. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, you know, the filmmakers don't know that this is going to happen, but it's crazy that you watch a film like Traffic, and even though it's, you know, tackles this very difficult subject, it still finds a way of like really resonating with what's going on today. It's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely incredible. And I mean, I got really like, just thinking about it too, it's making me very emotional. I mean, it's a really beautiful film, and
Mm-hmm.
I think everything like about it is pretty perfect. It's incredible that this film is what it is. It's so disappointing that I didn't watch it in its entirety until very recently, because I think if I had
Mm-hmm.
watched this long ago, I would have loved it. But I'm still glad. I'm so glad that I finally did get to sit down and watch it, because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it really is, to me, his masterpiece. And I haven't seen a film from him that is as good as this one. I mean, yeah, it's obviously not as rewatchable as like an Ocean's 11
Right,
or an Out
right.
of Sight, but I think the filmmaking on display is really magnificent, and
Yes.
I just love it so much. So, you know, that's my number one. And before, you know, we get into some of the films that didn't make the cut, let's recap our list from 5 to 1. So, Bailey, what is your list?
Okay, so from 5 to 1, my list is Solaris, Aaron Brockovich, Ocean's 11, Sex Lies and Videotape, and then my number one is Out of Sight.
And to recap my list, coming in number 5 is Logan Lucky. Number 4 is Sex Lies and Videotape. Number 3 is Magic Mike. Number 2, Ocean's 11. And number 1, Traffic. So that is it with our list. So now let's talk about some of the films that didn't make the cut. So, Bailey, what are some films that you want to give a shout out to that didn't make your list?
Okay, let's see. Kimmy, I think, is one of his more recent ones that I kind of went into that one like, you know, whatever, new movie, let's watch it. And I was really surprised. I think it's really good. I think it has I think it's like a great kind of like, it's in the vein of like old school thrillers, old school paranoia thrillers. You know, and I think it's also I think it's one of the movies that employs COVID in a way that doesn't feel like, you know, it's trying to do something with it. It doesn't feel like unnatural or anything like that. Like, it's just an element of the movie that happens to heighten, you know, kind of the tension at play there, which I really enjoyed, because I think, you know, more and more we're getting movies and TV show that integrate COVID, and some of it feels very weird, and, you know, I don't, it's hard, it's a hard thing to integrate, but I think Soderbergh did a really great job in it. I think Zoe Kravitz is great in it, and I think one aspect of the movie that I really that really stood out to me watching it this time around was the music. I think that it is so great at establishing the tension and her paranoia and her fear and everything. And it's Cliff Martinez who did the score, who Soderbergh has worked with a few times. And it really stood out to me this time. And I was like, this is, you know, I knew it was a good movie, but it's a good movie. And then some other ones that I really enjoyed, Unsane. I've never really been big on Claire Foy, but watching this one the other day, I was like, oh, she's actually like very good in this. And I think that's one where he shot it on the iPhone, which, you know, however you feel about that as a gimmick, I think it really works for the narrative in Unsane. I think it really contributes to, the kind of the way that he shoots it. The iPhone really contributes to that isolating feeling, the kind of the weird like fisheye look. It kind of makes her look weird. It makes her look like, things aren't necessarily happening the way that she's perceiving them, stuff like that. And I think this is kind of like it's kind of like the dark-sided Sexwise and Videotape where, she is being watched. She is having these intimate moments kind of intruded on, but without her consent. So it's kind of interesting to think of them like in conversation. And then another one that I liked was High Flying Bird, another iPhone one. And I don't think that the gimmick worked in service of the narrative so much there, but I still really love the movie. I think Andre Holland is great in that movie. And I think that one I also like to think of as kind of a heist movie, in the sense of the premise of High Flying Bird is that there's an NBA lockout, and Andre Holland is a sports agent, and they're trying to negotiate between the owners, the NBA owners, and the NBA players. And obviously, the owners, they want to be making more money, and the players want to be making more money, but there's more players to split all of this amongst. So there's kind of debate there. And then Andre Holland basically, like over the course of I think 3 days, engineers the situation so that the players can come out on top. So he kind of like, again, like it's kind of weird to think of it as a heist movie, I guess, but like it's that same idea where, it seems like everything is not really going well. He has a plan, but it's not really working out. And then all of a sudden at the end, you find out that it was all according to his plan. He knew exactly what he was doing from the beginning. And, it was all in his hands the whole time, which I really love. And then another one that I watched that I liked was Contagion. Watched that for the first time recently. I'm glad that I had waited, because if I had watched it right after the pandemic started, I think I would be a much more fragile person right now. But that one's great. I think Matt Damon has a really good performance in that I think, I never really know how I feel about Matt Damon, but I think generally I come out on the positive end with him. And then this movie I do for sure. And Kate Winslet too. So great in that.
Oh, my queen. My queen.
But that one, I think, that's kind of another, like, I guess, like, it's not really intended as a paranoia thriller because, in 2011, COVID wasn't a thing, but it made me a little paranoid watching it, watching them touch all these surfaces. And I'm like, guys, don't do that. But yeah, that's that. I mean, honestly, like going through watching these movies, I was like, how am I going to choose? Because he just has so many good ones. And like I was saying earlier, like even when they're not that great, like there's still such a style, like there's still a clear vision, however you feel about the execution, like there's no doubting, like, he set out to accomplish something making this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, when it comes to the honorable mentions, I really enjoyed Kimmy. I really enjoyed High Flying Bird. I haven't seen Unsane. I really like Claire Foy, so I do need to give that a watch, especially since I'm gonna see her in a few weeks when I go to the New York Film Festival. So I gotta support Claire and watch Unsane. Going through, let's see what we have. Yeah, Contagion is so fucking good. I remember when that trailer came out, I saw that trailer all the fucking time. Oh my God. And it kept playing the same scene. And it's not a funny scene. I don't think it's funny, but in the trailer, the way they edited it is so funny. I'm sorry. Matt Damon is told that his wife, Gwyneth Paltrow, is dead. He's like, okay, can I go see her? You don't understand. She's dead. What are you talking about? What happened there? Like, it's not funny when you watch the movie, but like just the way it's put together in the trailer, out of context, exactly. But no, it's a great film, and I have not seen it since. I can't even tell you the last time I watched it. And I remember everyone's like, oh, you see this movie Contagion when the pandemic started? I'm like, I'm not watching that now. Are you nuts? It's a good fucking movie, but God, that and the that Dustin Hoffman pandemic one with the
Outbreak.
Ebola. Yeah, Outbreak. Yeah, everyone was watching those two movies, and I'm like, are you nuts?
No.
Like, are you? Why would you watch these movies now? Like, at this point now in 2022, like late 2020, sure, you can watch them, but
yeah,
early 2020, no, thank you. Let's see. Side Effects, I really enjoyed. Really like that one. Another great thriller. Daddy Jude Law, fantastic job in the movie. Fantastic performance. Rooney Mara, she plays fucked up so well. It's insane how someone can play fucked up so well. Another person that I've seen in a few weeks, I cannot wait to see her. No, Rooney Mara was amazing in this movie, and so was Jude Law. I mean, oh my god, like he was the perfect person to play the doctor. Channing Tatum, for his small time on screen, I thought he did a good job. And then Catherine Zeta-Jones, she does some things in this movie that made my heart race. And when I watched the movie, I'm like, is this actually real, or am I just dreaming this? And if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen the movie, well, you better change that, because the movie is pretty fucking good. And this was the movie that came out to where people were like, oh my God, this is the last film from Soderbergh. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Well, technically, before he retired, his last movie is another honorable mention for me, Behind the Candelabra, which has Michael Douglas and Matt Damon. And Michael Douglas plays Liberace. He swept all the awards. I'm telling you right now, if this were a film that came out in theaters, I think 100% Michael Douglas would have won every fucking award for this movie. He would have won the Oscar. He would have won like the Globe. Fantastic film, like fantastic biographical drama. I mean, it's so different from anything Soderbergh has done. Like you watch, it's so weird that this and Side Effects came out in the same year, because Side Effects is this really fucked up thriller, and then you have this very personal drama, and it's so good. And the makeup work on both of these guys was insane. And I never thought that I would see Matt Damon and Michael Douglas play lovers, but hey, here we are. So great film, truly great film. And then I think that might be it for me in terms of honorable. Yeah, I think that's it for me in terms of honorable mentions. You know, I don't want to talk about anything negative on this show, but I'm sorry. I need to vent very quickly about the Laundromat.
I was gonna say, I watched that earlier today. No, sorry.
That movie.
Sorry,
Oh my God, I don't understand how that movie has a 50%. That movie should be in the literal 20% rating. Yeah. That film is so fucking terrible, and I don't think it's Soderbergh's fault. I think for the directing, it's directed pretty well, but the screenplay sucks. And that's a movie where all these different stories come together, and it's such a mess. And I don't like that. I don't like how he tried to make this Big Short-like movie, and it just did not work at all. And the ensemble here, it's so sad, because I love all these people: Meryl Streep, Gary Oldman, Antonio Banderas, Jeffrey Wright, Robert Patrick, Sharon Stone's in this, and fucking Ross Geller.
Yep.
What a waste. Wait, nothing. And then fucking Meryl Streep just comes out of her makeup at the end and delivers.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah,
give me a fucking break.
I didn't like the I guess frame of the
frame and device.
Of Antonio Banderas and Gary Oldman, it was kind of it was almost like that part was a play and then the rest of it was a movie. It was very I did not like that ending monologue from Meryl. I'm sorry, babe, it didn't work.
It was just so bad. It was so bad, and it's Oh my God. I'm like, Steven, what the fuck, man?
I know.
What
What
are you
happened here,
doing?
buddy?
Like, seriously, this was a bad day at the office. This was clearly a bad day at the office. That whole
Yeah,
monologue at the end that Streep gave was just so I don't understand. I literally don't understand. I don't understand what they were going for. I mean, I
I
guess I
don't
do, but
either.
the execution just did not work at all. And then I'm not gonna lie though, every time it cut back to Gary Oldman and Antonio Banderas, I just kept thinking in my head, I'm like, oh, this is Sirius Black and Puss in Boots just narrating everything. So, I love that parent so much. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Hmm.
accept that. And it's just so sad too because Antonio Banderas, the 2019, that was a fire year for him because Pain and
Hmm.
Glory was fucking incredible. And then he's in this movie, and it's like, oh, what a slump. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, it's honestly the only Soderbergh movie that I've seen that I really straight up don't like. It's
Yeah.
probably the only one that I could think of that I don't like because obviously there are others that I haven't seen. I mean, that Meryl Streep boat movie he did was okay. It was fine. Let them all talk. Like, that movie was okay. I
I
haven't
like
seen
that one, but it's definitely like it's a quieter one. I think
it's
there
a
are like
yeah.
there are parts that I enjoy, but I wouldn't put it like I'm not putting it in my top five, obviously.
Right,
And
right.
yeah,
And then I
but
haven't seen No Sudden Move, but I want to watch it because Brendan Fraser's back and I need to see that, but I just haven't seen that one. I do like how Don Cheadle and Benicio del Toro are leading that film. I think that's great. I think that's awesome.
hmm
So I do need to check that. Did you see that one?
I have. I actually rewatched it earlier today. Um, I think I like that one. I think that one is a little bit. It's based on a real story, I guess, but that kind of comes out of left field, like right at the very end. Like I didn't know that until the very end, the first time I watched it. And but I think like everyone's really good in it. I think again, it's like a great ensemble, and it's one of those, a little bit more complicated, his more complicated take on crime movies that a little bit more contemplative, a little bit slower, but I think it's definitely worth the watch, and it's definitely better than Laundromat.
What is worse than the Laundromat, honestly? um, and now to talk about his upcoming projects. First, let's talk about this limited series that he has coming out
Mm-hmm.
called where is I just had it? It's called Full Circle. It's going to be on HBO Max. And they added a new cast member today. I'll save him for last. But the cast that is assembled here so far, we have Zazie Beetz, Claire Danes, Timothy Olyphant, Dennis Quaid, and the cast member they added today, Emmy winner, Jareel Jerome. Great cast. I have no idea what this is about. Oh, here we go. An investigation into a botched kidnapping uncovers long-held secrets connecting multiple characters and cultures in present-day New York. Well, sounds exactly like something that Soderbergh would do. And I will eat it up, and I cannot wait to see this. Love all these actors, and some of
Mm-hmm.
whom have worked with Soderbergh before. Some of them have not worked with him before. And sounds great. What do you think of this?
I think I'm very excited for it. We didn't get a chance to talk about it, but he also has TV shows like The Nick and The Girlfriend Experience. I haven't watched The Girlfriend Experience, but I have watched The Nick, and that's really good. So I
Yeah,
think
he directed all the episodes of The Nick.
yes, exactly. So I think he's demonstrated that he can have the best of both worlds. He can do movies, he can do TV. All these actors are great. I'm very excited. I hope that he loves a little sexy moment. I hope that Timothy Olyphant gets a sexy moment because we need it.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to get that in Amsterdam. So this is the better
No.
one to get. So
Mm-hmm.
we're hopeful. We're hopeful that Steven gives him that
Fingers
sexy
crossed.
moment. Fingers
Yeah,
crossed.
exactly.
And now, finally, one of the most anticipated films coming out next year, Magic Mike's Last Dance. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. So, like I said before, I have not seen Magic Mike Extra Extra Large. So, I do need to watch that before watching this one. But when it was announced that they were making a third Magic Mike movie, and Soderbergh was coming back to direct it, I think everyone got excited for it because,
Oh yeah.
I know that a lot of people really enjoyed the second one, but obviously you could feel Soderbergh's presence missing as a director. Even though he shot the movie and edited it, it felt weird that he didn't direct it, but now he is directing this one. And, they're going to wrap up Mike's story, and it's going to be crazy. Probably it's going to be great. It's probably going to make everyone squeal and scream. Now, the cool thing with this film, and this just broke a few days ago at the time of this recording. So this was originally supposed to be an HBO Max exclusive release. Okay, whatever. I would have watched it in the heartbeat, but I was like, and I'm sure you were the same way, and pretty much everybody that, like a lot of the people that we both follow and everything, our mutuals were like, okay, why the fuck isn't this going to theaters? Why is this being dumped on HBO Max? Soderbergh, Magic Mike, this would do so well at the box office. The first two films did incredibly well financially. So why wouldn't this film go to theaters? Well, Warner Brothers the other day made a very smart decision that they couldn't do with the Batgirl, unfortunately, by just showing it in theaters. Instead, they announced Magic Mike's Last Dance will be coming out in theaters. And the good news is we don't have to wait long because it comes out on February 10th. We just have to wait like 4 months for it. Like less than 4. Today is September 20th when we're recording this. We have less than 5 months until this movie comes out. I guarantee a trailer is right around the corner. We're probably going to get a trailer very, very soon. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But I'm so excited to see how the story wraps up. I cannot wait to see the slew of actors that he gets to be in this movie. I wonder if he's going to get any returning cast members. I'm so excited for this. My hype is through the roof high. Obviously, there's so many films that I'm excited for next year. Someone asked me yesterday, are you more excited for Magic Mike's Last Dance or Dune Part 2? And I'm like, you're probably going to call me crazy, but Magic Mike's Last Dance.
No, that's a valid answer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So where is your hype level for Magic Mike's Last Dance?
Oh, I'm so excited. As I tweeted the other day, I think that a Magic Mike 3D theatrical release will do for horny movies, what Top Gun Maverick has done for dad movies.
100%.
Okay?
100%.
Magic Mike will save the cinemas.
Oh, yes,
Top
he
Gun
will.
Has done. I think I can't remember if I'm pretty sure I saw the first one in theaters. I definitely remember seeing the second one in theaters, which was such a great experience because, like I said, like the second one is definitely more like we're getting the band back together, like shenanigans type stuff. It's like, it doesn't have quite that somber note that the first one does, which I do really love in the first one, but like the second one is just like pure fun. And I'm sure like the third one is going to have a good mix of both, but it was just such a great like collective experience. I remember I went to go see it at an Alamo and they printed out these like little dollar bills that you could throw like whenever, they were doing dances on screen and stuff. It was so funny. I think I still have one. It has Donald Glover printed on it.
Oh.
But yes, I can't wait. I have full faith that Soderbergh will do a great job. I'm hoping for some, fun cameos. Like the last one had Donald Glover. It had who else? Andy McDowell. Like there were so many people in it that were, fun to just see, like just show up for a second. Oh, Jada Pinkett Smith, obviously, that was great. She was great in that. I think it'll be such a great time. I'm so excited.
So hyped. Truly, truly hyped. So our final thoughts on Soderbergh, really just an extraordinary talent working today. I mean, he continues pumping out great stuff, film after film. I love that he has tackled so many different genres. I love how eclectic his filmography is. And I love how he directs and writes and shoots and edits his films. You can't really think of a filmmaker that does that. And I love that he's able to do that. I really love this guy. And I'm so glad that he came out of his retirement and now is continuing to do work. I've been a fan of him for a long time. Obviously, like I said, there's still so many films of his that I have to go through. But from what I've seen, I could say that I am a true fan of Soderbergh.
Absolutely. I think he's such a great director. And like I said, I think he's like truly like the great equalizer between like, us film bros and, the general public. The guy knows how to make a movie.
He really does. And Bailey, I'm so glad I got to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on today to talk to me about Steven Soderbergh. It was an honor to have you on. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, thank you again for having me. I had such a great conversation with you. I honestly want to go watch more movies.
Well, we love that enthusiasm when it comes to film fragments. So where could the people find you online? Where could they find the Bailey?
So you can find me on Twitter at Ben BEEN _ Herdé HERDE. Yeah, I just like I said, just be tweeting bullshit all the time. Come and join me.
Yes, definitely go give her a follow. The link will be down in the description below. You guys can follow me on social media simply at Bryan Suffield. You guys could subscribe to the show on YouTube, all the podcasting platforms. We have a Twitter and Instagram. Follow us on there to stay up to date with what's going on with the show. We have a lot of great episodes coming to you guys in the next couple of weeks. Lots of great guests, lots of great topics. Guys, it's a very exciting time right now for film. There's a lot of great films coming out. I'm about to go to the New York Film Festival in just under 2 weeks. I'm so excited. So I cannot wait for you guys to see what's in store for the next couple of weeks on Film Fragments. But seriously, guys, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for sticking with us. Thank you so much for joining us today for this very awesome episode where we talked about Steven Soderbergh. And I will see you guys for the very next episode of Film Fragments. Take care, everybody.